need to go to Congress and say we need to close that revolving door that allows members of Congress to file on out and lobby. And we need to go to Wall Street and say no trust there either, because we have banks that are too big to fail. And I'm telling you, Neil, I'm the person who's going to lead the charge on all of the above and not only fix the economic deficit, but I'm going to fix this country's trust deficit, because we're too good as people to be in the hole we're in, and we deserve better.
Well, as Governor Huntsman just mentioned, there is a real drama playing out real time in Washington right now, with the threat of yet another government shutdown, the possibility that millions of Americans could see their payroll taxes go up. If you're president, as is the case now, and you're at loggerheads with one chamber of Congress, how would you handle this situation? 30 seconds down the line. Start with Senator Santorum.
Well, you do what leaders do when they go out and try to bring people together. They tell a narrative and remind Americans who we are and how we solve our problems. This country is a great country because we believe in free people. In 2008, the American public were convinced by Barack Obama that they needed someone to believe in, that they could believe in. We now understand that what we need is some president who believes in them. That's the narrative. Go out and motivate the American public. Have them talk to their representatives in Washington to pass solutions that believe in bottom up, how we built America, free markets, free people.
Governor Perry.
After 3 years, you would think that this president had learned how to work in Washington, D.C. If there's ever been a greater example of on-the-job training, this is it. And it couldn't have been at a worse time for America. We need a president who has that governing executive experience, someone who understands how to work with both sides of the aisle. Frankly, we should never have gotten to this point at all. The idea that he walked away from the work at hand, and we had a super committee that was put into place that was going to fail on its face. That's the type of leadership that this president has been an absolute failure at, and the type that I've been working at as the governor of Texas for the last 11 years.
Governor Romney.
Brett, this is a question that ought to take a lot longer than 30 seconds, even 60 seconds. It's the question of the presidency. What is leadership? I had the disadvantage in some respects of becoming governor in a state with a legislature 85% Democrat. Turned out to be a blessing in disguise. To get anything done, I had to learn how to get the respect of the Speaker of the House and the Senate President and Democratic leaders. I found a way to do that, to find common ground from time to time. And when crises arose, we were able to work together. That's what has to happen. There are Democrats who love America, as Republicans do, but we need to have a leader in the White House that knows how to lead. I've had 4 leadership experiences in my life where I've led enterprises. I want to use that experience to get America right again, and I will do it as president.
We will have many more questions about gridlock in Washington and this topic overall, but Speaker Gingrich.
Well, I want to start by reinforcing what Governor Romney just said. Leadership is the key. When you have a Saul Alinsky radical who is a campaigner-in-chief who doesn't do the job of president because he's too busy trying to run for re-election, the Constitution can't work. I helped Ronald Reagan, when Tip O'Neill was Speaker, get enough votes to pass the Reagan program despite a Democratic majority. As Speaker, one of the reasons some people aren't happy with some of my leadership is I actually worked things out with Bill Clinton to get welfare reform, a tax cut, and 4 balanced budgets signed in a way that required bipartisanship because you couldn't get anything done otherwise. So leadership matters immensely in getting this done.
Congressman Paul.
The main problem we have is the government's too big and the debt is too big, and you have to cut spending. So you have to get people to come together. They've been coming together to increase the spending for decades. We have to get them to come together to do the opposite. But there are 2 factions up there. One want welfare and the other want warfare around the world and policing the world. So you go to the people who like the warfare and say, give me half of the cuts that have to be in the welfare. Go to the welfare people and say, you give me the cuts to cut the overseas warfare spending and bring people together and live up to what they say.
Congresswoman Bachmann.
As President of the United States, I would have called all 535 members of Congress to come in and sit down in Washington last summer when we were looking at the debt ceiling crisis. And what I would have done is said there are 3 principles that we're going to follow, because the first one needs to be no new taxes. We're taxed enough already. The second principle needed to be that government can't spend any more money than what it's taking in. And the third principle had to be that we were going to follow the Constitution of the United States. What that would have meant is that we would have looked that $15 trillion debt in the eye and said, we're not going to add one more cent to it. We're going to prioritize our spending, and we're going to put the reform in these long-term programs now, not wait 8 months or 5 months. We're going to reform right now.
Governor Huntsman.
Leadership is action, not words. And I learned a very important lesson about this when I ran for governor in 2004. I promised the people of my state as governor that we would create the finest state in America for business. I ran on a flat tax proposal. It took us 2 years. We got it delivered. Flat. I hear a lot of people talking about tax reform and a flat. We actually got one done. The finest business climate in the United States we delivered to our people. Health care reform without a mandate. The list went on and on and on. I ran for re-election. I got almost 80% of the vote. Not because I'm a great politician, but I learned some lessons in leadership. The people want to be told where you can take them, and then they want you to deliver.
Thank you. We have many more interesting questions coming up. We have a new feature for you tonight as well. How well are the candidates answering the questions? We're asking you to weigh in on Twitter. Tweet the candidate's last name and the hashtag answer if you think they're tackling the question, or the hashtag dodge if you think they're avoiding the question. Then you can go to foxnews.com/debate to see those results. Now, during the break, you can head there and check it out. And if you have a suggested question or a follow-up to something you've heard, tweet @BrettBaer. We'll be using some of those suggested questions tonight. After the break, the candidates on the increasingly sharp tone of this campaign, the economy, and a topic that has not been raised in any of the debates so far. Stay with us.
Good evening from Sioux City in northwest Iowa. I'm Matt Strawn, chairman of the Iowa GOP. 4 years after propelling Barack Obama to the White House, Iowa has seen a surge of new Republican voters as Iowa Republicans have posted 33 straight months of voter registration gains. And as those Republicans prepare to vote in just 19 days, we understand the responsibility that comes with the privilege of being first in the nation. And because the fight to reclaim the White House extends far beyond Iowa's borders, we want you to be the first to know. So text Iowa to 91919 to know the results and other updates. Thank you, and now let's return to the final debate before the January 3rd Iowa caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome back to Sioux City, Iowa, and the Republican presidential debate. For the next round of questions, turn to my colleague, Chris Wallace.
Thanks, Brett. Candidates, I'm going to call this section, for lack of a better word, D.C. culture. Governor Romney, I'm going to begin with you. Speaker Gingrich says that you should give back the millions of dollars you made, in his words, bankrupting companies and laying off employees. You respond that he has, in your words, an extraordinary lack of understanding of how the economy works. But his comments dovetail with arguments you hear from Democrats that your belief in what's called the creative destruction of capitalism shows a hard-heartedness. What do you think of what Speaker Gingrich had to say about you, and are you vulnerable to that kind of attack?
I think it's a great opportunity for us, because I think the president is going to level the same attack. He's going to go after me and say, you know, in businesses that you've invested in, they didn't all succeed. Some failed. Some laid people off. And he'll be absolutely right. But if you look at all the businesses we invested in, over 100 different businesses, they added tens of thousands of jobs. In the real world that the president has not lived in, I actually think he doesn't understand that not every business succeeds. That not every entrepreneur is lucky enough to do as well as the entrepreneurs that I described at Bright Horizons and Staples and that steel company and many, many others. I myself have had the chance of leading 4 different organizations. Each of those was highly successful, in part because of hard work and in part because of good luck. In the real world, some things don't make it. And I believe I've learned from my successes and my failures. The president I'll look at and say, Mr. President, how'd you do when you were running General Motors as the president? Took it over. Gee, you closed down factories. You closed down dealerships. And he'll say, well, I did that to save the business. Same thing with us, Mr. President. We did our very best to make those businesses succeed. I'm pleased that they did, and I've learned the lessons of how the economy works. This president doesn't know how the economy works. I believe to create jobs, it helps to have created jobs.
Thank you. Speaker Gingrich Speaker Gingrich, on the Freddie Mac website in 2007, you said this: I like the GSE, or government-sponsored enterprise like Freddie Mac model. Making home ownership more affordable is a policy goal that I believe conservatives should embrace. Now, in an earlier debate, a recent debate, you said that politicians like Barney Frank, who profited from the environment that led to the financial meltdown, should go to jail. Now that it turns out that you were on the Freddie Mac payroll to the tune of more than $1.6 million, how do you answer critics who say that you're being hypocritical?
I think pretty straightforward. Barney Frank was in public office with direct power over Freddie Mac. He exploited that power, just as Chris Dodd was in public office when he got special bargains from Countrywide, a firm which went broke. They were using power. I was a private citizen, engaged in a business like any other business. Now, if you read the whole thing that they posted, I said they need more regulations. And I want to go back to my point about helping people buy houses. I worked for years with Habitat for Humanity. I think it's a good conservative principle to try to find ways to help families that are right at the margin learn how to budget, learn how to take care of a house, learn how to buy a house. And I'm not going to step back from the idea that, in fact, we should have as a goal helping as many Americans as possible be capable of buying homes. And when you look, for example, at electric membership co-ops, and you look at credit unions, there are a lot of government-sponsored enterprises that are awfully important and do an awfully good job.
Congressman Paul, you are, and having been in this town for, 48 hours now, you are all over Iowa TV these days with a negative ad about Speaker Gingrich. You accuse him of selling access and playing the corrupt revolving door game. What about the explanation you just heard that he's in the private sector and this is free enterprise?
Well, he has a different definition of the private sector than I have, because it's a GSC, government-sponsored enterprise. It's completely different. It's a government agency. They get the money and sponsorship. They get mixed up. It's the worst kind of economy. You know, pure private enterprise, more closely probably what Governor Romney is involved with. But if it's government-sponsored, it's a mixture of business and government. It's very, very dangerous. Some people say if it goes to extreme, it becomes fascism, because big business and big government get together. So yes, they get money. And I was talking about that for a long time, the line of credit, the excessive credit from the Federal Reserve, the Community Reinvestment Act. For 10 years or so, the Austrian economists knew there was a bubble, and at this time, nobody was listening or doing anything in the Congress. And then to go to work for them and get money from them, it literally is it's literally coming from the taxpayer. They went broke. We had to bail them out. So indirectly, that was money that he ended up getting. They're still getting money from us. Government-sponsored enterprise. It's not a free market enterprise.
Speaker Gingrich, 30 seconds to respond.
Well, let me just go back to what I said a minute ago. The term government-sponsored enterprise has a very wide range of things that do a great deal of good. Go across this state and talk to people in the electric membership co-ops. Go across this state and talk to people in the credit unions. There are a lot of very good institutions that are government-sponsored. And frankly, the idea that anything which in any way has ever touched government could raise questions about doctors dealing with Medicare and Medicaid and a whole range of other government activities. There are many things governments do. I did no lobbying of any kind for any organization, and that was a key part of every agreement we had.
Well, let me pick up with that with you, Congresswoman Bachmann, because you accuse Speaker Gingrich of peddling his influence with congressional Republicans to help the companies that paid him tens of millions of dollars since he's left office. Given his denial over time, and again tonight, that he denies ever having lobbied, what is your evidence, hard evidence, that he engaged in influence peddling?
Well, it's the fact that we know that he cashed paychecks from Freddie Mac. That's the best evidence that you can have. Over $1.6 million. And frankly, I am shocked listening to the former Speaker of the House, because he's defending the continuing practice of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. There's a big difference between a credit union and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and they were the epicenter of the mortgage financial meltdown. I was trying to see these two entities put into bankruptcy because they frankly need to go away, when the Speaker had his hand out and he was taking $1.6 million to influence senior Republicans to keep the scam going in Washington, D.C. That's absolutely wrong. We can't have as our nominee for the Republican Party someone who continues to stand for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They need to be shut down, not built up.
Speaker Gingrich.
Well, the easiest answer is that's just